Ladies and gentlemen, a high-value woman ain't out here begging nobody for attention. She's not chasing, not pleading, not lowering her standards to fit into a man's world. Nah, she walks in and makes the whole room shift. Why? Because she knows who she is. And she talks to men like she means it. A high-value woman walks into a conversation already knowing her worth. She doesn't sit back hoping a man will say the right thing, do the right thing, or validate her press. She brings the tone, the standard, and the energy with her. From the moment she speaks, it's clear she's not there to be chosen, she's there to choose. That shift in mindset is everything. She's not waiting to see what kind of man he is. She's observing if he aligns with what she already knows she deserves. A lot of women were taught to wait. Wait for the man to initiate. Wait for him to define the relationship. Wait for him to say, I love you first. But a high-value woman doesn't operate out of passivity. She's not desperate, she's not thirsty, and she's not stuck in a fairy tale that tells her Prince Charming will magically make all the decisions. She leads with her truth, how she thinks, how she feels, and what she wants. That doesn't make her aggressive, it makes her intentional. When she enters a conversation, she's already clear on who she is, and that clarity sets the pace. She's not playing along with surface level small talk if it doesn't serve her. She's not afraid to ask direct questions. She's not scared to say, I'm not interested in casual situations, or this is where I see my life going. Where do you stand? That kind of boldness doesn't push the right man away. It filters the wrong ones out. That's the difference. A high-value woman isn't trying to impress a man. She's trying to express herself. And if that expression makes someone feel intimidated, that's not her problem. That's the world doing its job of moving weak energy out of her space. In a conversation, she listens carefully, but she also pays attention to how she feels. Is she shrinking herself? Is she adjusting to keep his interest? Or is she showing up fully and being received without resistance? That's how she knows whether to lean in or walk away. She's not caught up in trying to be what he wants. She's already decided that what she brings to the table is valuable, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. She's not auditioning. She also doesn't let silence make her settle. If the energy's off, she'll say it. If the vibe is wrong, she'll check it. If the conversation isn't meeting her mentally, she's not scared to move on. That doesn't mean she's rude or dismissive. She's simply honest. Her tone says, I respect myself, so you're going to respect me too. She understands that the first few moments of interaction set the foundation. If she starts off being unclear, too nice, or overly accommodating, it teaches him how to treat her. And she's not leaving that lesson up to chance. She teaches people through her presence, through her words, and most of all, through her boundaries. A high-value woman doesn't stumble over her expectations. She doesn't water them down to make someone else feel comfortable. When she talks to a man, she's upfront, not in a confrontational way, but in a confident, calm way that leaves no room for confusion. She doesn't drop hints or play guessing games. She says exactly what she means, and she means exactly what she says. Because for her, clarity is respect. And if a man can't handle clarity, he's not ready for her. She knows that communicating standards is not about being demanding, it's about being intentional. She's not trying to control anyone, she's simply setting the tone for how she expects to be treated. She'll say things like, I don't do disrespect, or I don't entertain inconsistency. And she won't say it with an attitude, she'll say it with certainty, because she's already done the inner work to know what she needs in a relationship emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and she's not afraid to speak on it. She doesn't use silence as a strategy. She uses words, real, direct, mature words. If something bothers her, She doesn't sit on it for a week hoping he figures it out. She brings it up calmly and clearly. When you said that, it didn't sit right with me. I felt disrespected when that happened. She doesn't explode, she expresses. That's a grown woman move. She knows how to have difficult conversations without losing her composure, because her goal is not to win an argument, it's to maintain her peace and uphold her values. She doesn't let fear of being alone make her lower her voice. She doesn't soften her standards just to keep a man interested. She's not worried about scaring someone off. In fact, if her honesty scares someone, that just makes her job easier. That's one less person wasting her time. A high-value woman would rather stand alone in truth than sit beside someone in pretense. And because of that, her communication style is bold, simple, and strong. She also doesn't over-explain. She'll tell you what she wants once. She'll express her boundaries once. If a man respects her, he'll respond accordingly. If he needs repeated reminders, she sees that as a sign, not a challenge. She's not a coach, she's not a fixer, she's not a therapist. She's a woman who knows her worth, and her words reflect that. And she's not just vocal about what she doesn't want, she's equally clear about what she values: loyalty, effort, communication, intent. She'll speak life into the right man, but only once he's shown he's deserving of that energy. Until then, she's not oversharing, overinvesting, or overcompensating. Her clarity is her filter. If you can't handle the truth of her, you're not ready for the reality of her. A high-value woman protects her time like it's gold, because she knows that once time is gone, she's never getting it back. She doesn't spend her days checking her phone, wondering why he hasn't called, or stressing over whether she should text first. She's not pacing around trying to decode mixed signals. She's too focused, too grounded, and too aware of her worth to get caught up in emotional tug-of-war. If a man is unsure, unavailable, or inconsistent, she doesn't chase him. She releases him, because her peace matters more than anyone's potential. She understands that energy is currency. Every conversation, every late night thought, every moment she spends questioning a man's interest is an investment. And she doesn't invest where there's no return. She's not putting in all the effort just to feel temporarily chosen. She doesn't play games to get attention. She simply exists in her power, and whoever sees her value will move with clarity, not confusion. If a man wants her, he knows what to do. She doesn't make it hard to reach her, but she won't make it easy to waste her time either. A high-value woman doesn't beg for clarity or chase closure. She doesn't entertain situations where she's being breadcrumbed or strung along. If something doesn't feel right, she trusts that feeling. She doesn't argue with it. She doesn't try to justify red flags. And she definitely doesn't romanticize inconsistency. She understands that silence is an answer, avoidance is a decision, and lack of effort is a message. And once she gets the message, she moves accordingly. She's not afraid to walk away, not because she's cold or detached, but because she respects herself too much to stay where she's not valued. When she talks to a man, she doesn't use manipulation or tactics to get him to chase her. She doesn't try to play hard to get. She simply is hard to reach if you're not coming correct. That's not strategy, that's standards. And she doesn't compromise them just to fill space. In conversations, she's present but not pressed. She listens but doesn't overextend. If a man brings peace, clarity, and consistency, she'll give him the same. But if he brings confusion, chaos, and excuses, she won't argue. She'll exit. She doesn't raise her voice, she raises her standards. That alone filters out the ones who aren't ready for her. Her life is already full of purpose, full of goals, full of people who uplift her. So she doesn't need to chase a man to feel whole. She doesn't use attention as a substitute for connection, and she doesn't rely on drama to feel desired. Her energy is too expensive to be spent on situations that leave her drained, confused, or questioning her worth. A high-value woman doesn't shape herself around a man's preferences. She doesn't enter conversations thinking, I hope he likes me. Instead, she moves through relationships with the mindset, let's see if he aligns with what I allow in my life. That's switching language from hopeful approval seeking to firm boundary setting makes all the difference. She's not living to be liked. She's living to be respected. And when she speaks to a man, her boundaries show up before her insecurities do. She knows what she will and won't tolerate, and she doesn't wait until she's deep in a situation to start drawing lines. She doesn't discover her boundaries by getting hurt. She defines them ahead of time. She knows she doesn't tolerate emotional unavailability, broken communication, or a man who shows up when it's convenient. She says it up front, and she says it without fear. She's not rude. She's not trying to scare anyone, but she also isn't in the business of teaching grown men how to treat her from scratch. A high-value woman doesn't play nice at the cost of her dignity. She's not going to suppress her truth just to keep a man interested. If she notices red flags, she doesn't overlook them because she really likes him. She addresses them directly or she removes herself. Because she doesn't chase potential. She holds space for real presence, real effort, and real respect. She speaks from a place of clarity, not from a need to impress or to be chosen. She replaces passive language with power. Instead of saying, I just want something serious, she says, I don't entertain situations without clear intentions. Instead of saying, I hope he doesn't ghost me, she says, I don't engage with inconsistency. That kind of language doesn't just tell a man what she wants, it shows him what she won't accept. And there's strength in that, because a woman who knows what she won't tolerate is a woman who can't be manipulated. She's not afraid of being alone because she doesn't see solitude as a punishment. She sees it as a space of peace, reflection, and growth. That's why she doesn't let fear dictate her standards. A high-value woman won't lower the bar just to have someone to text. She's not clinging to attention. She's committed to alignment. If a man can't meet her where she is, she's not stepping down to meet him halfway. She'd rather wait for quality than settle for convenience. She also doesn't spend her energy trying to figure out if a man respects her boundaries. She watches, she listens, she pays attention. If he repeatedly crosses a line she's drawn, she doesn't make excuses. She makes adjustments. Her goal is not to control anyone's behavior, but to control who gets access to her life. She doesn't try to fix disrespect. She removes herself from it. And a high-value woman understands that the way she communicates reflects how she sees herself. She doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard, and she doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. When she talks to a man, her words are rooted in self-respect, not superiority. She doesn't need to flex, she doesn't need to boast, and she doesn't feel the urge to dominate the conversation. Her confidence is quiet but undeniable. She's calm, she's centered, and she knows that the right people will understand her without her having to prove a thing. There's a difference between ego and confidence, and she knows it well. Ego seeks validation. Confidence already has it. Ego argues to be right. Confidence speaks to be understood. When she's talking to a man, she's not trying to outsmart him or control the conversation. She's simply expressing herself clearly and firmly. She states what she wants, what she believes, and what she won't accept. And she does it without hesitation or apology. She also understands tone. She knows how to say what she means without turning it into a confrontation. She can correct without attacking, express disappointment without shaming, and set boundaries without belittling. That emotional intelligence is what sets her apart. She's not reactive, she's responsive. She thinks before she speaks, And she speaks with purpose, not to hurt, not to impress, but to align. Even when she's dealing with conflict, she doesn't stoop to disrespect. If a man raises his voice, she doesn't match his volume. She matches it with silence or composure. She knows her energy is too valuable to waste on emotional chaos. She doesn't let anger speak for her because she knows once words are out, they can't be taken back. Her power isn't in how loud she gets. It's in how deeply she's rooted in herself. When she compliments, it's genuine. When she critiques, it's constructive. She has no interest in tearing anyone down to lift herself up. Her confidence allows her to celebrate others without feeling threatened and to hold her own without feeling the need to compete. That balance is what makes her presence powerful and her words meaningful. She doesn't use passive-aggressive language, and she doesn't hide behind sarcasm when something bothers her. She says it directly, but with grace. That didn't sit right with me. I expect more than this. Let's be real about what this is. Her honesty is not meant to provoke, it's meant to create clarity. And clarity is a form of kindness, even when it's uncomfortable. She's not interested in controlling the conversation. She's interested in real connection. That only happens when both people can speak and be heard. So she listens, but she also makes sure she's heard, not through force, but through presence, through tone, through truth. That's what makes her unforgettable. Not just what she says, but how she says it. A high-value woman doesn't get swept away by smooth talk or grand gestures on day one. She's not fooled by charisma, good looks, or carefully rehearsed compliments. She's seen enough to know that words without actions mean nothing, and charm without consistency is just a temporary performance. So she doesn't build her trust off how a man starts, she builds it off how he shows up, day after day. One good conversation won't win her over, but consistent behavior over time will earn her attention. She understands that emotional maturity reveals itself in patterns, not moments. A man can say all the right things and still lack the depth to follow through. She pays attention to how he handles discomfort, how he responds when things don't go his way, and how he treats her when there's no benefit involved. She doesn't get impressed when he's charming in public. She watches how he speaks when no one's watching. That's where the truth lives. In the everyday moments, in the effort that doesn't ask for recognition. When she talks to a man, she's not evaluating how fast he moves. She's watching how steady he is. Does he remember what she says? Does he follow through on his promises? Is his energy consistent, or does it fluctuate depending on his mood or convenience? These are the things she observes quietly and carefully, because she knows love isn't built in the high points, it's built in the in-between, in the follow-up texts, the small check-ins, the willingness to stay present even when it's not exciting. A high-value woman listens more than she reacts. She lets people reveal themselves without interference. She's not trying to speed up the process or romanticize someone into the role she hopes they'll play. She knows that time reveals truth, and she's patient enough to wait for the truth to surface. If his energy starts strong but fades quickly, she takes the hint. If his words are passionate but his actions are passive, she doesn't try to bridge the gap. She lets him fall into it. She values reliability. She values emotional steadiness. She's not attracted to roller coasters. She's attracted to peace. So if a man shows up big one day and disappears the next, she doesn't make excuses. She doesn't chase clarity. She watches the pattern. And if that pattern shows inconsistency, she makes decisions accordingly, not out of anger, but out of wisdom, because she knows that true interest doesn't leave her guessing. Real intention shows up every time, not just when it's convenient. She's not looking for perfection, but she is looking for stability. A man who says what he means, means what he says, and shows up in the same way on a Wednesday as he did on the weekend. That kind of consistency is what earns her respect, her trust, and eventually her vulnerability. Because for her, charm might catch her eye, but consistency is what keeps her heart. A high-value woman doesn't dim her light to make someone else feel comfortable. She doesn't downplay her goals, hide her intelligence, or quiet her opinions just to make a man feel more powerful. She shows up as her full self, confident, capable, and complete, and expects the people around her to rise to that level. When she speaks to a man, she's not trying to shrink herself into the version she thinks he wants. She's standing tall in her truth, and only a man with real substance will be drawn to that kind of energy. She's not afraid of being too much, too smart, too outspoken, too ambitious. None of that intimidates her. She knows the right man won't be scared by her strength. He'll be inspired by it. And if he's not, that's not her cue to tone it down. It's her cue to move on, because she doesn't see relationships as spaces where she has to prove her worth. She sees them as spaces where her worth should be recognized and matched. She's not looking for someone to complete her. She's looking for someone who's already complete within themselves. When she enters a conversation, she doesn't lead with neediness. She leads with presence. Her energy says, I'm whole on my own. I'm just seeing if you're worthy of a seat at my table. That energy forces a man to evaluate himself, not out of fear, but out of reflection. Can he handle a woman who knows who she is? Can he keep up with someone who doesn't settle? Can he contribute something meaningful to her life? Or is he just looking to take from it? She's not looking for someone to carry her. She's already walking her path. What she's looking for is someone who can walk beside her. And if a man isn't ready for that kind of pace, she's not slowing down. She won't nag, beg, or plead for him to evolve. She'll step aside and let him figure it out on his own. She's not in the business of dragging people into alignment. She's in the business of moving with people who are already there or on their way with intentional steps. A high-value woman doesn't keep her standards low to keep a man close. She keeps them high and lets the right one rise. That kind of energy doesn't repel the right man. It challenges him in the best way. It brings out his leadership, his drive, his purpose. She inspires without trying, because her life speaks louder than her words. A man who sees her clearly won't ask her to shrink. He'll grow into the man who deserves to stand beside her. She's not scared of being single because she knows she'd rather stand alone than settle in silence. Her presence requires strength, and only a man with vision, discipline, and real intention can walk with her. She knows that when she refuses to shrink, the right man will expand.